This week on the TT show, Ubisoft has been accused of using bots to promote its latest installment in the Assassin's Creed franchise. AMD's FSR 4 embraces AI for handhelds. PS5 Pro performance details emerge. Latest Nintendo Switch 2 rumors suggest a dual screen, and much, much more. Let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of the TT show. My name is Jak Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Kosta Andriadis, gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, hello.
We are back for another episode. We have less than, what is it? When do you have to leave tomorrow morning?
Oh, well, it's less than 24 hours until we're on a plane to Hong Kong.
Yes.
For an MSI event.
I have to get up at 4 a.m., Costa. No,
Insane.
I have to be at, no, my flight's at 6, so I'm going to have to get up at 4, leave by, oh no, I'm going to have to get up at like 3:30.
Wow.
Because the airport's half an hour away.
Well, I have to get up, early, but not ridiculous.
You got two flights. You just go straight. You just drive straight to Melbourne Airport, and then you just fly out of Hong Kong. You're just on a plane to Hong Kong.
Just single plane. Like it's like, connecting.
It's so good. Pain. It sucks, dude. It sucks. But yes, we are both heading over to Hong Kong to check out a motherboard. Huh?
So we can't really say.
Oh, we can't say nothing.
NDAs when we get there to sign.
Oh, well, that was the biggest teaser ever then. That was great. That was well executed teaser. You will hear all about it, I'm sure, after we come back. Is that something like it's going to live?
It'll be either like next episode or the episode after that or whenever the embargo dates are. Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, you'll hear all about it. Hopefully you'll hear all about it. But before we head off, we have a few stories to get through, and to kick things off, one of my favorite companies, Ubisoft, is in hot water once again. Picture my face and the surprise on it when I came across this story. And this story contains a little conjecture, as it is not 100% proven, but upon looking at all of these comments, and if you assess it for yourself, I feel like you will land on the side of, something shady is going on here. So Assassin's Creed Shadows, I should say, has been in hot water since it was announced.
This should have been, before we begin, this should have been like a slam dunk, right? So Assassin's Creed is a franchise that's been going on for several generations of PC hardware and console hardware. And ever since I think probably Assassin's Creed 2, which was set in Italy, people were going, oh, I wonder where the next one's going to be set. And people have always been saying, oh, set it in Japan, during the feudal era or, ancient Japan. And they've kind of like skirted around that by saying, no. They've done, London, they did Paris, they did colonial America and, Egypt and then Greece and, England again with the Norway or the Viking Valhalla. So, so this was like kind of like almost like a fan service. Assassin's Creed in Japan feels like, oh yeah, that's what the fans want.
Who wanted that?
So it should have been but it should have been slam dunk. That's what I'm saying.
I can't remember anyone asking for that, because when this came out,
it was just
the first thing that everyone said was, this is a crap
thunder
version of Ghost of Tsushima. That's what everyone is saying. Even in the comments of this video right now, it's like, oh, cool. I think one of the top comments was like, oh, thanks for reminding me to play Ghost of Tsushima.
Because that was Ghost of Tsushima plays very much like an Assassin's Creed game, and but it's kind of like stole its thunder by bringing people that style of game that they wanted already. So it's like like it's not like that appetite has already been served by Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, that is true, but when
You know what I mean? Like if there's already one game like that, it's like, oh, you're really beaten to the punch. It's like, like if Overwatch comes out and then
Concord
some other
comes
hero
out,
shooter comes out like 6 months later, it's like, oh, well, if Overwatch didn't exist, that'll be great. And this is kind of like if Ghost of Tsushima didn't exist, we'll be looking at this game a little bit differently.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, yeah, I do want to play an open world Japanese game, a game set in Japan.
Sure, but for the same reason Concord failed is the same reason why I think this game is going to suffer in sales. Is because we do live in a reality where that game does exist and there is a better option.
I still think there's a chance it'll sell well because it's going
to sell well because people are retarded.
It's still like one of their biggest franchises, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, people like watching schlock movies as well. Like,
yeah,
I
exactly.
can't.
Like, I'm not saying I don't like condone it, but it's like if a Transformers movie comes out and it does well.
Yeah, sure. Michael Bay is one of the most successfully selling directors as well. I'm shocked Kevin Hart's still making movies as well. But
yep,
it's a free market. But if we are going to, if you want I believe. And I believe I'm also in the minority here because of the amount of money that I've seen people spending on microtransactions in games. And I have probably spent like maybe since my adult life, probably like $20 or something like that. Like I don't buy skins, but then I look at the numbers and, people these days go, oh, well, I can get early access to a game, for example. It's like say Assassin's Creed Shadows. I don't buy early access to games because I'm entrenched in the gaming industry and I know how egregious and disgusting some of the early access for titles can be. And in no other form of media do we accept this level of unfinished product. Imagine going into a movie, imagine spending $40 to go to, and that's more than a movie ticket. Like that's a cheap game these days. Going in and seeing the CGI is 60% finished, and then they're going, oh, we'll roll out an update in 2 weeks. Why don't you come back when it's done? Like, there's no other form of media that we accept this blatant, like, it's not finished, you're falling through the map.
A work in progress.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. No other form of media do we accept that. And also, games are more expensive than the movies. So, I suppose that is why the industry is like twice as big as Hollywood. However, back to Shadows. On speaking of unfinished products, at least this looks like it is an unfinished product. And what is the funniest part about it is the Ubisoft cherry picked this trailer and couldn't even choose the best of the best. And if this is the best of the best, like the trailer for the title.
Yeah, so
this is funny. This is hilarious.
Yeah, it's called the World Trailer, which is supposed to show you like how great the world looks, and some of it does look good, right? Like you got different seasons and stuff like that, and some of the environments, like trees and grass and animals and the water and all that stuff looks pretty good, right? Because I mean, stuff like that has looked good for a decade plus now, right? Even like Assassin's Creed environments have looked good since Assassin's Creed 2. Like 15 years ago or whatever the case is. So that's never really the issue. But the issue is like the finer detail, right? So you release a world trailer and you show the world, and then pretty much 20, 30 seconds in, you see a horse walking through a city street at night, like, in a town, and it's supposed to be, because it's a mood setting trailer. They call this sort of trailers like a mood, right? So like you show you different environments. It's like a teaser. It's not plot driven or story driven. It's not thematic. It's like, the Lord of the Rings first teaser where it just shows you glimpses of the environment or the characters and you're like, wow, amazing, right? And instead with this, you see like a horse that looks like it's skating across the ground, moonwalking, sliding, and it's, like you look at Red Dead Redemption 2, right? The way that the horse moves in that game. Is just incredible, right? Like the tail flicking off flies and, the horses. Rockstar went to the level that most developers can only dream of, right? Like, the horses poop and all sorts of things. Like, it's like, And you know, when you get on your horse, it's like everything is like realistic when it moves, the weight shifting, and just you just feel it, right? So that's the extreme of how realistic it can look. Whereas this is just like a detailed horse model just sliding across the screen.
Yeah,
Almost like you're holding
cooked.
a figurine, like a toy, and just going.
Yeah, it's like you're playing with a kid.
Yep.
Like a 3-year-old. You're like, here's a horsey. And then it's na. No, it's crazy because this is like they chose this. Like you said, like we were messaging privately, like when this trailer came out 4 days ago. You said like they chose this.
You choose the scenes, right?
Every
like
single frame of this trailer is deliberate.
Clips. So surely, like somebody, like, because you mentioned me, you go, look how good the horse looks at the 30-second mark, and I'm thinking, oh, it's going to look realistic.
Yeah.
And then I start playing the trailer, and I'm like watching it, and then at the 30-second mark, I just see it sliding. I'm like, whoa, that looks off.
That looks bad. Hey, that looks really bad.
Yeah.
But that isn't. I mean, that is what this is being torn apart for. When the game came out, that is what it was being torn apart for. But then something really strange happened. The comments all turned positive, and we don't know why. We don't know where all of this influx of traffic came from.
We can guess why.
Huh?
We can guess how. Yeah.
You can guess how. I mean, you guys can. We'll put some of the comments up on the screen right now. Reese, just save them and splatter them everywhere. Yeah, make sure they aren't forgotten. That's for sure. So these comments appear to be written by bots, and this is where they
by
can
humans, but then or like generated by AI or humans, like hundreds of them, right?
Hundreds of females are flocking to Assassin's Creed Shadows. All of them.
Because it's like, can we talk about how beautiful this game is? Like the detail is mind blowing, but then it's like the weather looks insane, and then there's like specific stuff like mentioning things in like you know specific to the game, like oh how great does the season look or whatever like that.
Yeah,
which kind of like sounds like they were given keywords to cover, and then the bots just generated all these comments.
Yeah, well, no, what I think has happened is, so I think a day after the trailer dropped, and then people were calling out all of the animation stuff, then these bots started flooding the comment section, but they weren't flooding it with a quantity of comments. I think real people have written these comments, and then they've purchased I don't know who they are, purchased bots to like the comments. All of the likes on all of these comments are within a similar ratio. Like they're between like 3,400 likes and 5,100. And also all of their naming structures are first name, last name, collection of 4 numbers. First name, last name, collection of 4 numbers.
Right,
like,
and they all got like the likes, so they go up to the top. Yeah,
and they all are female. I'm not saying that girls don't play games. I'm just saying that blokes
they're just like
play games more than girls.
Social media
and
bots
it's
where they just have like a generic female avatar. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're more likely to get clicked on. You know what I mean? Like if you scroll down, you're like, wait, this chick's playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, or there's a pretty girl comment. You look at her, and then it's more likely to get liked. It's nefarious. And this is the biggest piece of evidence that these are bot comments. Is they're now deleted. These comments are gone. You cannot find them. Go to the Assassin's Creed World Trader. They're all gone. All of them. And also, if you add up
so then they got called out and they're like, all right, we'll remove them.
Yeah. Well, what was funnily enough is Tweaktown was the first website to actually write this story, while there was many YouTubers that were calling it out because, you know, they're streamers, and then streamers, like people jump into their chat and go, oh, check out the amount of bots that are in the Assassin's Creed Shadows World trailer. And then they jumped in. But I think this is really gross. And now the comments have turned into, and this is my favorite part, Ubisoft caught red-handed botting their videos, 13,000 likes. Ubisoft invested more money into bots in comments than they into the game itself, 6.1 likes. And all of these have different. If you notice, Reese threw this up on the screen as well. All of these comments are from accounts that have different names. Like it's not the same naming structure. I thought what was going to happen here is after they got removed, there was going to be like an influx of new bot accounts with like kind of like balancing the pendulum out. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. It's like, YouTube comment sections are like turning into, I don't know, like a cesspool of just bad misinformation.
Isn't like, we were talking about it like a while ago that, I mean, separate to this, that like a big chunk of all internet traffic and social media traffic is just bots.
Yeah,
like
dead internet theory.
The dead internet, yeah. Like where it's just, which, you know.
Look, you would never know, right? How would you ever know?
I mean, put
how do you
in charge and then
test
you'll
that?
find out.
I suppose the big question here, and it's the one that's on everyone that's heard about this story's mind, is Ubisoft the culprit behind purchasing these bots just for likes on that, like for positive comments on their video?
No, I think that this is endemic, right? Like they're not the only one, but this is a high profile caught red-handed straight away situation. Because
give them the benefit of the doubt here. It's a competitor. I would do this if I wanted to sink your submarine.
Guerrilla marketing. It's like, okay, our game's coming out 2 weeks after.
What else is coming out? No, I know Sony doesn't have anything coming out. What's Xbox got going? But I obviously we can't say that this was Ubisoft for sure. And even though I do have as many problems as I do with Ubisoft, it is just, you can't say this was Ubisoft 100%, but what you can say is that it's within Ubisoft's best interest to have as much positive engagement as it possibly can on a trailer for an upcoming title. Now, whether this has completely backfired in the company's face or not, or it's a competing developer, I want it to be a competing developer because that makes the story more juicier.
Yeah, if it was like a different publisher.
Oh my God, that'd be crazy. That would be insane, because that would make, the first thing I would think is like, oh my God, how much does this happen and we don't know? And do you know what? I don't think this would even work for GTA 6. Like if you could buy 40,000 bots to do negative comments on that game and it is still going to go crazy, which is just
you can't
awesome.
because you don't, like, you would have to spend, or wherever it works, you'd have to like go hard. I mean, because that sort of trailer is going to get like 100 million views, right?
Yeah, within like 48 hours.
Organic, and it's going to get millions of organic posts and comments just going, holy moly, check out this at this second.
It's like the Interstellar wave, where it's like, they're not mountains, they're waves. And it's just GTA 6 fans like, whoa. and Ubisoft and every other game at the time is like, Matthew McConaughey's character is like, get to the ship, get to the ship, get out. And they try to pull out. GTA 6 is just...
When do you think we'll get the next GTA 6 trailer? Because it was kind of like a holiday last year. I think they'll do like another one this year to be like 2020, to lock in the date.
Do you reckon it'll be a gameplay trailer, or do you reckon we're just going to get another cinematic?
I think it's going to be like another like cinematic one. But
I want it to be just mixed. Just show me a little
dialogue. Potentially, but even that one was kind of like a good teaser. I think they'll just do something similar, but just entirely different footage, same sort of length, and come out in December again, and then just put the 2025, like holiday 2025, or some sort of window, or just a year again, because I think they would have, by the end of this year, they would have a good, at least idea of when it would be ready. Because the only thing is that, like, a game like that, and modern games taking so long to develop, is that if it gets pushed, it's only going to get pushed because of they just need more time to polish it, really.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I would like one. Obviously, I want as many trailers as possible, but I agree. I think the next one, I reckon we're going to get maybe even a little bit of gameplay. I would like just a touch in there. It doesn't look. You can have 90% of it be.
Oh yeah, like environment shots and real time cinematics.
Just show me the beach, show me Miami, show me the cool cars, show me the guns. Like they're all maybe cutscenes from the story or just like wide shots or something like that. But I do want a little bit of gameplay, just thrown in there, just to because this is the same problem that I have with Assassin's Creed Shadows, and this is a pretty bad offense in my book, is that the game comes out in less than a month. It comes out November 15th, and pre-orders have been open, I don't know, since I wrote that story about it being like $150 for you to get the game.
Yeah, they kind of like
there's no gameplay for this game. There's none.
They've always done that where it's like they announce it and then saying pre-order it now without any gameplay.
It's gross. It's such an offense. Is you're just taking, like, imagine again if this was a movie, we wouldn't be putting up with this. But then
there's some, yes, like if you're unaware of it, then yeah. But like if you look at like Elder Scrolls, right? Let's say they just announce the next Elder Scrolls with a teaser trailer and a date, and say pre-order it now of this collector's edition. I mean, Elder Scrolls fans will just pre-order it. I don't think that's that scummy. Like for like if it is like a big franchise or like Zelda or whatever like that, you can do that if there is that legacy. And I think with Assassin's Creed they've kind of like squandered it. But then also they do it with every single game.
Structure.
They do it with every single game, so it's like
Yeah, but not every game has the pricing structure as Assassin's Creed. Like if you want to pre-order GTA 6, it's going to be $70 US.
Yes.
Like that's it. And also you don't have to if you pre-order Assassin's Creed Shadows for $70, which is their standard edition, you got to then wait an extra 3 days for you to play the game when everyone else is playing it in their gold and whatever their platinum edition, because it came out 3 days early because you get early access.
It's a single player game. It's like why even bother? I mean, it's a single player game. Like who cares about early access?
Yeah, it's not like
you completed the tutorial before me.
Blizzard at some point are going to do this, and it would be such an offense for World of Warcraft players, but I can imagine if you pre-order the
they wouldn't do it for like their online games.
It would be crazy if they did.
Yeah. Because they those servers, like the way that they're set up is kind of pretty cool. It's almost like a level playing field. Like so like the Diablo 4 expansion, Vessel of Hatred, there's not going to be early access to that because the servers are all live. It's like that patch goes live at this time and you can start playing at this time. There probably won't even be like a chance for reviewers to even play it early because unless they create like a specific test realm just to review the game, which I think they did for Diablo 4, which means that you couldn't carry your character across to the live game and things like that. You know what I mean? Like, and then it would be the same for like World of Warcraft. If they do it, it's just for internal testing. Like all that will get wiped as soon as it goes to like live.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I think that it's an egregious kind of offense for these pre-ordering, and I like that the sentiment right now, at least in the gaming community, or at least by people that are like wanting developers and publishers to do right by people that are purchasing their games, is to be very cautious when pre-ordering a title. I suppose that is about all for the Ubisoft story.
Let's talk about the PlayStation 5 Pro Fallout.
Yes.
Well, not necessarily Fallout, but last week we spent a big chunk of time talking about Sony's big reveal for the PlayStation 5 Pro. We got an overview of the specs and performance from Sony, 45% more powerful GPU, 2 to 3 times the ray tracing performance, and PSSR, or PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, which is their version of AI upscaling like NVIDIA DLSS. And one of the main criticisms about that whole presentation, which we covered, was, it was a game of spot the difference because if they were trying to show like, look at this background image, look at this one's slightly sharper than that one, but then you've got YouTube compression, or this one's running at 30 and this one's running at 60, and it's like, okay, but even with YouTube compression, it kind of doesn't look as impressive as it should or could, right? But then it's such a minor difference, and you're just using old games old games that have been around since the PS4 era, that it wasn't a exciting, like, here's the PS5 Pro, and we talked about last week, like, what if they showed Wolverine? What if they showed this? What if they showed this? Just running on the Pro hardware just to sell it as a premium upgrade. And since then, there's been speculation about, performance and how PSSR is exactly going to work, what it can and cannot do. Will the CPU be a bottleneck? Because the CPU is not changing and the CPU architecture is now getting a little bit old, because we're talking about a pre-2020 architecture from AMD. So, and with that, Digital Foundry, the online tech channel that goes hardcore into game graphics and visuals, and they do their deep dives and performance breakdowns for absolutely everything.
They're very good.
And it was surprising that Sony didn't actually engage with them to present like a video on the console, because Microsoft kind of did that with the Xbox Series X for them to go through like some of the technology and hardware.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
And so their initial reaction was, oh, we can't tell what's going on because of the compression, right? Because they can look at an image and do an analysis and tell you, if it's DLSS, or if it's like a variable refresh rate, or like a variable resolution. They'll tell you what the resolution is and kind of like where it kind of mainly sits and things like that. So then there were high quality versions of the PlayStation 5 Pro demonstrations from Sony that they were able to go through. So this is like 4K high quality videos that aren't, compressed streams. And they got to go through the footage that we saw for Ratchet and Clank, Alan Wake 2, Gran Turismo 7, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Hogwarts Legacy. And with PSSR, like their general consensus is that PSSR, or their AI-based upscaling, is better than the console version, or AMD's FSR, which is available on PlayStation 5. And they say that it is a definite big step in the right direction for PlayStation in terms of having like a upscaling solution that's not on par with DLSS, but getting there. So they said that DLSS is still better for image stability and things like ghosting or shimmering on objects in the background, which can be an issue when you're generating pixels, right? And so they took a look at one of the games, which is Alan Wake 2, Remedy's sequel, and that came out, I think, late last year. It was a showcase for what can be possible with visuals on PC with a path tracing mode and stuff like that. So and obviously the console version was never that level. So looking at 4K 60 footage of that with PSSR enabled, they kind of saw that it was running natively at 864p, which was similar to their conclusion for the Assassin's Creed Shadows footage, 4K 60 upscaled with PSSR, but the base resolution being 864p, which is sub Full HD, sub 1080p. And more, what does that mean? It basically means that you've got less pixels to work with to begin with, so the output's not going to be as impressive as it could be. So on PC, you've got DLSS, different modes, right? So if you're gaming in 4K, you've got quality mode, which upscales from about 1440p. Then you got balanced, which is kind of like 1200. Then you got performance, which upscales from 1080p. But NVIDIA has spent quite a bit of effort to get that performance mode, that 1080p upscaling, to look really good at 4K. And Alan Wake 2, running on a 4090, which is an insanely expensive GPU that costs 5 times as much as not 5 times, but 3 or 4 times as much as a PS5 Pro. That running at 4K, like 80 FPS, is upscaling from 1080p, and it's using frame generation, but that's with like the full path trace, ray tracing. So that's good to show you that Alan Wake 2 can be like a very intense game. So it's not a case of, the PS5 Pro is weak because it's 864p. But
The heavy
then by
load.
that same token, it does show that, basically that upscaling solutions are an absolute requirement for gaming now. What do you think?
864p.
Yep.
I like the quote. I can't stomach this, unfortunately, but I do like the quote from Digital Foundry, and we do trust in the gold standard here. So I do believe them. Look, this is what they said. The reason why high quality upscaling was created was to shift the balance from quantity of pixels to quality of pixels and opening the door to smoother performance. It's down to developers to strike the right balance, but PSSR is a big step in the right direction. Yep. I hope they're right. They are right in saying that, but I just hope developers don't use this as a crutch to make their games look great and not play well, because that appears to be the direction we're going. And I've actually got a story that I'm going to write after we do this recording. I think it was a report from WCCF Tech about the CPU in the PS5 Pro.
Okay.
This story here. Here's the headline. The PlayStation 5 Pro focus on image quality improvement in performance mode is one of the reasons why CPU wasn't upgraded over the base model. And they sourced the Digital Foundry video as well, funnily enough. But they were clearly going for an increase in graphics here and not in performance, which is why we're stuck with the same CPU that's slightly quicker.
Yep.
I don't know how I feel about it natively rendering from 864p to hit 4K 60. That canvas feels way too small to get high quality 4K, or because it's not native, right? So it's going to be just below 4K 60 FPS.
Well, like, so 4K 60, with upscaling, right? So like, even on a 4080, you're going to be playing at 4K 60 with DLSS, right? So like that just means that it's upscaling, and then you have to wrap your head around that. Okay, so there are like pixels that are being generated by AI. So the native resolution, not at worst, but like, like you don't really go any lower on PC. Is that if you're playing in 4K, you're not going to be going any lower than performance mode, and performance mode in DLSS or even FSR renders at 1080p at 4K, right? And that's for the DLSS AI algorithm, the latest version. That's enough information for it to actually create a 4K image that is way more detailed than playing the game in native 1080p. So the confusion might be like, well, if it's 4K 60 but it's rendering in 1080p, what's the difference between that and just playing the game in 1080p, right? It's going to look way better, like noticeably better, like immediate, like a night and day sort of difference between. That's what makes tech like DLSS impressive. And it'll be the same with PSSR. It's not that you're playing the game and it's going to look like it's running at 864p. It's not. But that's the internal rendering, and that won't be enough information for it to create like a perfectly stable 4K 60 image. Like there'll probably be things in the background. There'll be some ghosting, there'll be shimmering, there might be some artifacts, but the benefit that Sony has, and I think they knew this going in, was that you're not sitting as close to the screen as you are with a PC. Generally, for a monitor, DLSS has a bigger mountain to climb, so to speak, because you're within 30 centimeters, 50 centimeters from your PC monitor. You're right there up close to the pixels. So if you're upscaling and there are issues, you're going to notice it. Now, if you're sitting 2 meters from your display, you're not going to notice as much of the finer detail, or if there are just like tiny little artifacts, like you may not even notice them.
Okay, so what about so does the PlayStation 5, will I be able to switch PSSR off and then play my games natively?
No.
Will PS5, will the base model be able, like, have this feature as well?
No. So it won't be in the base PS5 model. And that's probably what's going to be the, where we're going to get the full picture, is when we see like the same games running.
That's what I was about to go to.
In kind of like a performance mode on the PS5 using FSR or just whatever upscaling versus the PS5 Pro version with PSSR.
Absolutely.
Or like the quality modes, you know, the quality version on the baseline PS5. And if it's running at 30 FPS, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's rendering in native 4K. It could be like 1440p upscaled to 4K 30.
Yeah.
And on the PS5 Pro, it could also be 4K 30, but with more visual effects or something like that, and upscaling from 1440p as well, but with PSSR, and then you could tell the difference in terms of like image clarity and stuff like that. So it's going to be something that we need more information on, but at this point it does sound like Sony is just going all in on PSSR as the way to, with the beefier GPU and stuff and all that sort of stuff as well, to boost the performance.
Yeah, I will need to see a side by side, and I reckon if I was to do a prediction, some aspects of the base model will look better than the PS5 Pro, but then some aspects in game on the PS5 Pro are going to look better than the base model. And you know, if that is the case, and there is a much for muchness between the base model and the Pro version, like, and I'm talking as much of a difference as what they showed in the trailer, then that whole excuse
spot the difference. Like you need a magnifying glass to spot the difference.
Yeah, literally. You know, you need Digital Foundry to be like, here's the difference. That whole excuse of, oh, well, we're going to use upscaling technology, but you're going to be sitting 2 meters back from your screen, so you're not going to see it anyway. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, so it's kind of like a
who cares about that? You mean we're sitting at the same distance from every other console that we've ever purchased?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like I think like one of the examples will be Gran Turismo 7, right? So Gran Turismo 7 is adding ray tracing in race. So like when you're driving around, you'll see the reflections of other cars on your car.
Yeah, that's nice.
And all that. It's going to look slick. And apparently it looks better than the version that's in Forza on Xbox. But Gran Turismo 7 on the existing PS5 runs at 4K 60 native without ray tracing, without upscaling.
Yeah, see, there's
120 FPS mode that just upscales from 1440p. So that game is smooth, crisp, clean.
Yeah, it's polished.
Great on the PS5. Now, on the PS5 Pro with ray tracing in the race, apparently it's running at 1188p and then upscaling that to 4K 60. So now
this would be a perfect test.
So that's a perfect test, right? So you're going to be seeing the game running native 4K 60 without ray tracing, but then you're going to see it running with PSSR with ray tracing. Now, outside, separate to the fancy reflections, you can be like, oh, that looks cool. Will the rest of the image look slightly fuzzier, not quite as impressive?
I wish we had, I mean, I don't have a PS5, but I wish we had two available so we could run this test, because I'm really interested in, it'd be
like
actually cool
PS5 Pro.
to do, imagine doing Gran Turismo 7 on PC as well, and then showing the difference between PSSR and DLSS.
Yeah, that's one surprising one that they haven't announced for PC yet.
Oh, that's not announced for PC, really?
Did it?
I just assumed. But that would be interesting. Like, imagine getting I think PS5 Pro is the equivalent of a 4070, essentially. Yeah. Yes, no.
That's what they're saying. It's the closest to, because of
closest
because of the boost to ray tracing. But then the Ada Lovelace architecture is more powerful, right? The 4070
Right.
is more powerful than the PS5 Pro in terms of what it can do, and as well as DLSS and frame
But what
gen
would it be, like a
and ray reconstruction.
70?
It's kind of like the they said it's kind of like a 3070 Ti with 4070, like some of the 4070 ray tracing capabilities.
Right. It'd be good to get one of them cards. Try and upscale from I mean, you'd probably have to do a custom res, and then that might limit your games. But
Yeah,
not every
like
game.
I think you'd be able to do an exact like for like, right? So we should probably look into that. So like if
That'd be cool.
one of the first games to get a patch is Ratchet and Clank, right?
Yeah.
That game I have on PS5, I have on PC. So seeing it on the PS5 Pro, then you'd be able to compare it directly with a similar GPU. You know, can slap a 4070 and or even doesn't matter what GPU, just set the resolution, the DLSS target, and cap the frame rate and see to be like for like, and then see the difference.
Yeah, maybe we'll look into that, because this is really, I want to see. I think we're on the same page here with PSSR. And the difference between the base and the pro is that it's probably going to be different aspects of the image that are better in each camp, if you know what I mean. Like, you know, the reflections might look crazy with the PSSR, like on the pro model, but then, you know, it might look crisper on the base model.
Yeah, like the background track detail.
Yeah, it might look,
background track detail will look better.
Yeah,
and,
sharper.
Also as well, like seeing these numbers. And, you know, previous reporting, people would saying, oh, everything's rendering at 4K native. And that's just silly, right? Because that doesn't even happen on PC.
Yeah.
Because there's just no, like you can, if you want, for a lot of games, you can run them natively in 4K. But in a lot of cases, there's just no reason to. It's like if you can run DLSS quality, your GPU is actually going to be running more efficiently, and it's going to look better or like for like to native. And it's a better solution for anti-aliasing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I suppose I completely agree with Digital Foundry, is that it is going to be up to developers to take advantage of this and use this tech in the right way. I don't want to see my games go down from, I mean, 864p is just even hard to swallow. Because we've been going up in resolution for so long. It's like now we're going backwards. But I don't want to see the games go down to 480p and then rendered from 480p to 4K 60.
That's impossible, right?
But then again, like, I mean, who knows what's possible? This tech wasn't possible like 5 years ago, you know?
Yep.
Like if we went back in time to us 5 years ago and someone put a hand on one of our shoulders and said, hey, we're going to go backwards in resolution and the games are going to look better.
Yeah, it's
I would have punched that person in the face. I would have been like, you, and we're like, no, you bad. You got no idea.
The quantity of pixels comment is apt because it's like going from 1080p to 4K is 8 times the pixel count.
Yeah.
8 times.
That's
so
crazy.
It's like, if it was double, you'd be like, okay, I'm going to need double the GPU power. And if GPU can double in power every 2 to 3 years, okay, and then to get to 8 times will take like 6 to 9 years or whatever it is, right? It's just silly. So like it makes sense for DLSS. And NVIDIA has a version called Ultra Performance, which is only meant to be enabled when you're rendering in 8K, is that it takes it renders in 1080p and it uses a very specialized version of the algorithm to get that to 8K.
Jesus Christ.
And it actually looks pretty good, but it's like that's the AI at that point is generating 80+% of everything you see on screen.
It's having a nosebleed.
And the final thing I would say is that with the PSSR seeing that it's like, oh, it's rendering at 1080p or close to, or whatever the case is that the problem with FSR, which is available on consoles, AMD's FSR, super resolution, it's non-AI based, is that when it has to deal with more, like, you know, if it's a performance mode where it's like going from 1080p to 4K, it falls way short of DLSS. Like it's not that great. But when you're going from like a quality mode, when it's like going from 1440p to 4K, FSR2 is perfectly fine for consoles. It's not at the same level as DLSS, but it's good enough. Like it is actually something that you go, okay, yeah, that's better. But you know, like, and if they were using FSR to go from 864p to 4K, it would be a
blur.
I wouldn't say disaster, but it would be like, okay, yeah, that doesn't look like 4K. Sorry.
Yeah, it'd be like if the Flash was running around you in circles.
Yep.
You would get a nosebleed. No, I suppose we do need more details for this. I would love to be able to do a side-by-side test and also compare against DLSS and FSR. That would be, I reckon, an epic article. But yes, we will need to wait until we see video proof of this. But that is our predictions. We are pretty much the same predictions. The image is going to look different in certain spots, different quality in different aspects. I don't think and this might be just mine, I don't think the PS5 Pro is going to be distinctively, like, impressively better than the base model. I think we're going to have an approximate difference of what we saw in the trailer.
Yeah, my issue as well is when you look at the PS4 Pro and the One X, those were released in 2017, around there. And that's when 4K TVs had been out for like a year or two.
Yeah.
But they would actually, the adoption rate was huge, right, for like new TVs.
Yeah.
And
so expensive.
They were expensive, but like there were enough of them out there. And one of the PS4 Pro was that we can upscale to 4K. And whereas the baseline PS4 was kind of locked to 1080. And so the 4K was like, oh yeah, that is way crisper. You know, so it was like, 1080p versus 4K. It was a big difference.
Yeah, 8 times the amount of pixels.
So like that made sense because it was like, oh yeah, there's TVs now. The next gen consoles are still 3 or 4 years out. So let's have a 4K console.
Yeah.
Whereas now you just got like slightly better 4K.
Yeah, slightly better. Yeah, that's true. And 5 people have an 8K TV, and then you've got the viewing distance problem with 8K as well that you have to tackle if you're thinking about getting it. But yeah, that's our predictions for the PS5 Pro PSSR tech. Let's move on to FSR.
To FSR, yeah, which is a kind of a natural segue. So Tom's Hardware got to speak with Jak Hoon, or however you pronounce that, AMD. He's the head of the Computing and Graphics Business Group, which includes Radeon. And he talked about FSR 4, which is surprising because FSR 3.1 is still very, very new. That kind of like has the latest version of their upscaler as well as frame generation technology, and it decouples it. So they're two separate things, part of the same package, which means that in some games you can have DLSS upscaling, but then use AMD's frame generation, which is great for 30 series, people with 3080s and 3070s, because they can't access NVIDIA's frame generation because it's locked behind the 40 series and its AI hardware. So FSR 4, AMD is finally embracing AI. So they're basically saying that they're going full AI for FSR 4. And that includes the super resolution as well as the frame generation. How that works is a question mark. So there weren't details on, okay, it's going to require special AI hardware on Radeon GPUs, or it's going to leverage all the AI hardware that's now available in CPUs. Like it's obviously going to have to require some sort of NPU or AI model running on either a GPU or a CPU to achieve. So outside of like the technical understanding of how it's going to work, the most interesting thing is that he talked about it by saying that, he's got if you're looking at the ROG Ally and the Legion Go PC gaming handhelds, that battery life is pretty limited in terms of like if you're playing a game like Black Myth Wukong or something like God of War or like a AAA sort of game, you're limited to about an hour, hour and a half of gameplay or whatever it is. And he's saying that, I want to play for 3 hours. And the way you do that is with frame generation and interpolation, or, upscaling super resolution. And FSR 4 is going fully AI because one of the main reasons is to improve handheld gaming and to improve battery life when you're gaming on a handheld, which is a surprising approach because there's no mention of like, hey, this is going to be great for desktop gamers or PC gamers with laptops or, just regular gaming rigs.
Wow. So this is, well, I'm guessing FSR 4 is definitely going to come to PC at some stage, but at least
I would have to, yeah.
Yeah. At least this is where upscaling technology is really exciting, because I think handheld devices could definitely use a bump in performance.
Yeah.
Yep. Especially considering the market is only just now becoming saturated with options. Like, it was pretty much the Nintendo Switch that was only really available, or at least a popular handheld device since 2017. And I suppose that we've been talking about the Nintendo, like the successor to the Nintendo Switch, having some form of upscaling technology since, I don't know, probably the start of this podcast.
And that it would be DLSS because it's running NVIDIA hardware.
Yeah, and that is correct. So this is good news. This is only good news for handheld gamers. I'm interested to see, I wonder, and this, I'm just thinking out loud here. I wonder if any form of FSR or DLSS or whatever will come to smartphones, because Apple and stuff like that are leaning heavily into gaming. Like with the, I think I was saying last week, the iPhone 16 lineup with the A18. Yeah, A18.
Yeah, there are.
Chip is 30% more performance compared to the iPhone 15 lineup in the iPhone 16 base model, and titles like, I think it was Assassin's Creed Shadows, Resident Evil, and some, and also just a side note, no one's buying these games, by the way. Like, do you remember that story that I did on Resident Evil, and it sold like 1,500 units? It's like
because it was like $60 on a mobile game.
iOS Tweaktown. So I'm just thinking out loud. Do you think we could see this type of,
because
FSR specifically?
Yes, because I actually posted a story a while ago too. So July. So ARM, who makes, a lot of the mobile chip and technology. A lot of the chips are all ARM based, including, what's on Apple devices. So they're working on something called ASR, which is, I think, ARM super resolution. And it actually uses AMD's open source FSR 2.2 as a baseline, and it's basically to bring it to mobile.
Wow.
And the way that when they explained it and showed it, is like, sure, you get way more performance, which is like the big thing with these technologies on, if you're a PC gamer, it's like performance. You're not worried about, oh no, my GPU is using 30% less power. But when you go to a mobile device, your mobile using that 30-40% less power, then that's a massive benefit, right? So they're developing ASR specifically to boost performance, but equally to boost battery life, which is what AMD is talking about with FSR 4. Now, the reason, I think, one of the big reasons why, not necessarily why they're focusing on handhelds or PC gaming handhelds, but why it's good news, is that when you're looking at a handheld, you're rendering at 1080p max, like natively, right? But with FSR, you'll be like going from 720p to 1080p, and FSR, the existing version, the non-AI based, is where it struggles is at the lower resolutions, and where PC game handhelds live is in the lower resolutions. So it's not, they don't have the benefit of having the big chunk of pixels that upscaling from 1440p to 4K does. So it's not like FSR quality is going to look as good on a handheld as it does on like a high-end 4K gaming rig. That's just not the case. And at lower resolutions, it does fall apart, and that's probably why Sony decided to jump to make PSSR. And like, here's a tinfoil hat theory. I think that PSSR is based on FSR4 if it's AI based.
Oh.
I think Sony has taken that tech because it's AMD hardware in there, and they said that we pushed AMD to increase their ray tracing 2 to 3 times, and Sony's not going to say we're using their tech. Like,
it's kind of like a Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT scenario where Microsoft have given OpenAI $10 billion, and then whenever there's a new version of ChatGPT that comes out, Copilot is suddenly upgraded. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's exactly that. So it's probably a version of FSR4 that they've got AMD to develop with them. Just and they call it PSSR, like, because it's, you want to put your stamp on it, right?
Yeah, of course. So they would have taken like the skeleton of FSR4, probably done probably rubbed some Sony magic on top of it.
Yep.
Rebranded it. Now we've got PSSR. That makes sense, man. I think that is a very reasonable theory. I think it's very reasonable. One
of the reasons why I sort of like thought about that was that in that interview, Jak said that FSR4 has been in development for 9 to 12 months, and that their FSR team has fully pivoted to that. That's pretty much all they're working on is FSR4 now.
Okay.
So like, if it's been in development for a year, then the PS5 Pro's PSSR has been in development for a year at least as well.
It's got to be longer, right?
So it's got to be, and it's all RDNA, Radeon, AMD architecture. Yeah. Like, why wouldn't it be? Like, it just seems like it makes sense.
Yeah, it does seem that it's got to be some version of FSR. It's very interesting. I think handhelds are definitely going to benefit a lot. Maybe they just need to iron out the lower resolution problem. But once they have that,
help with.
Like, once they have that all done, like, and you're able to go from, like, let's say handheld pipe dream kind of stuff here, like the Nintendo Switch 2. Well, let's not do the Nintendo because that's NVIDIA. So let's do like the ROG Ally. We're at 2.
Yeah,
now?
like next year there'll be like a 2 because the other thing is that AMD's announced that there's going to be a Ryzen Z2 Extreme chip. That's the one that's in the ROG Ally.
Right.
And that'll be kind of like based off their beefy existing Strix Point chip that's in the high-end Ryzen AI mobile processors, like where it's got RDNA 3.5 graphics and it's got more compute units. So it'll be like a 30% power bump.
Wow, that's
a performance bump.
That's healthy.
And I think if that's coming like early next year, specifically for PC gaming handhelds, and PC gaming handhelds any gaming handheld using that chip will be like 30 to 40% more powerful than the current handhelds.
And which is 1080p 60, the Ally, most games?
Yeah, with
most
FSR,
games?
with upscaling.
Yeah, so the new one with this kind of technology, with FSR4 paired with the new chip, what we could see handhelds go have a 1440p display, but then upscale from 960? 1080?
Yeah, but I would actually just prefer keep it 1080 for that sort of screen size.
You reckon?
And then just up the visual quality settings in game. So you're not playing games at like 1080 60 ultra settings. If you're playing Black Myth Wukong, you're playing on low.
Right.
So then now you can play on medium. You know what I mean? And then it looks as good as a console.
I kind of want it
I think
to be
that sort of bump
1440p.
could be like PS4 levels, which is going to be crazy.
Or is that display too small? There's too much pixel density.
Yeah, there's too much pixel density.
For 1440p?
Sorry?
For 1440p, at what's the display size for the Ally? Is it like 13 inches?
No. They're like 7-inch or something like that.
Oh no, that's the iPad. Yeah, 7 inches at 1440p.
That's how much they are. Yeah.
That'd probably be way too dense.
Yeah. So 1080 is fine for that.
Yeah, 1080 would be fine. So you'd be upscaling from 720p then.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that's great. Yeah, upscale from 720p to 1080p. Play Black Myth Wukong at low or medium. That. Poof.
Yeah, and then you run their frame generation as well, and then you can boost the perceived frame rate, the performance again. And if it's going to be AI based, and those, the Z2 Extreme will have AI hardware in there in the Zen 5. It will have an NPU, and I think that's when they launch. I think FSR is coming specifically. FSR 4 will launch alongside these handhelds.
Awesome. Well, speaking of handhelds, let's move on to is this our last story, or do we have one more after that? What was that, sorry?
I think it is, yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the latest Nintendo Switch 2 rumor, which likely has no credibility whatsoever.
I was about to say
have to
that,
talk about it.
I saw this and I'm like, I'm sure we'll talk about it. So I didn't like message you, but I'm like, surely Jack knows that this is probably way off base.
It is way off base. That's why I wrote the article the way that I did, and also listed the myriad of ridiculous Nintendo Switch rumors within the article. So just to run over a little bit of backstory, we've been hearing rumors about the Nintendo Switch 2 since the Nintendo Switch came out. So there has been numerous different rumors that have popped up. We had one that it was going to... Do you remember that rumor where it was like a patent figure where it didn't have like one side of the console didn't have like a joystick or something like that?
Oh, yeah. And then there was like some ones that looked like a step backwards in terms of design. Yes.
Yes. Look, rumors for consoles and stuff like this can be completely left field. And unless there is like a massive leak, kind of like the PS5 Pro, where literally...
But there hasn't been really for the Switch. The Switch 2 has been kind of like...
airtight.
Information has come from somebody who knows a game developer who heard from Nintendo or whatever. Like there's
or the manufacturing line.
Yeah, there's degrees of separation here that keep a lot of it like, under wraps, or like a lot of it is still a mystery. Even though like, when it's fully announced, a lot of the stuff that has been talked about and, like DLSS upscaling or, a mode with a dock that can boost performance even further or something like that. Like, if we hear that sort of stuff, it's going to make sense.
Yeah. Those, some rumors definitely have more credibility than others, but I should say, as like a little caveat, Nintendo hasn't said anything regarding the Nintendo Switch. Everyone's calling it the Nintendo Switch 2. It might not even be called the Nintendo Switch 2.
All they keep saying is that, like, it's funny now, every time they do like a stream, they just say we will not be talking about the Nintendo Switch's successor. That's how they refer to it, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, they're referring to it as the successor. However, that will not stop us from beating the dead horse with rumors, and let's get into it. So the latest rumor comes from it's Taiwan. Oh, where is the link? Taiwan Economic Daily News. That reporter cited sources close to them that informed them the Nintendo Switch 2 will have a dual screen design that will be reminiscent of the Nintendo DS. It'll have increased battery capacity. There's no surprise there. Increased processing power. Well, that would be absolutely tragic if it had the same or less as the Nintendo Switch. That would be crazy.
Like water is wet.
Oh, this is just it literally. No, just a sidebar. The Apple presentation, they said that I can't remember what it was, but it was some I think it was the AirPods. They're like, oh, this is the new 3D case for the AirPods. And it's like, as opposed to
case.
what? Like the 2D dimension? Like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, it's 3D. We live in 3D reality.
Oh, I've got a 3D phone. It's like 3 dimensions now.
Everything's 3 dimensions, bro.
A 3D phone case. I bought a 3D phone case.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, crazy.
It holds the entire phone.
Yeah.
It's 3D.
Yeah, so the prediction of the Nintendo Switch successor having increased power, I reckon we're on the money there. Else? AI capabilities, that was presumably what we've been talking about, NVIDIA's DLSS, which makes more, which is a rumor, again, is a rumor, but we believe it stands more credible because NVIDIA powered the first Switch, and we know that, is it confirmed that NVIDIA has their chip inside
No,
it's not.
No.
But
well, it's their relationship is weird, right?
Okay.
Absolutely weird.
But it's Nintendo.
Because
everything's weird with Nintendo.
Yeah, think of how many Switches have been sold.
100
and how
million.
many, ancient chips NVIDIA's had to produce to send them to make these consoles. It's part of their gaming revenue, but it's never singled out by NVIDIA. And NVIDIA and Nintendo likewise never say, NVIDIA, blah, blah, blah. Like, they never,
Yeah, they don't mention each other, do they?
But I think with the Switch 2, I got a feeling that that's going to change, because I think if everybody, because it's weird that
you can't have
DLSS
in it and not mention NVIDIA.
Because NVIDIA is great at marketing, right?
Yeah.
So when they did the 30 series and the 20 series DLSS, and then they kept that drum going, it's like DLSS, frame generation, everything is DLSS, right? It's like they're going to show you a game, they're going to show you with DLSS running, and they've kind of just not pummeled, but they've repeated that so often now that if you listen to console gamers or podcasts or media they're just console gamers, right? They're not PC gamers. They're not injected into the PC hardware and know what a SOC is or different chips and all this sort of stuff. They don't know that information, but they know DLSS, and they know that it makes PC games run better and look better. That's what they know. And so whenever they report on the Switch, they're like, it's going to have that in AI technology, that NVIDIA DLSS that makes PC games great. And that's all they know, right? Beyond that, they may know that it's upscaling or it's AI, but they don't really understand what's going on in terms of that, nor should they, nor they need to. But I think with that, with that sort of awareness of DLSS, Nintendo will either, I think it's maybe 50-50, depending on how, prideful they are, or how, if the rumors of their relationship with NVIDIA being kind of very
on the rocks,
cold. So maybe they will just say AI upscaling and that's it, right?
That's crazy. That's crazy to me. Do you know why? Now, as soon as you said prideful, I'm like, I bet you that's going to be
as soon as I was saying
a not insignificant part of the reason. It's not insignificant part of the reason. And I bet you that pride is stemmed from they can't have another brand associated with Nintendo because it looks like they're getting help.
Yeah, but then also
what I mean?
It's like, well, we don't really have a great relationship with them. Maybe, who's to know? But that's what we heard. It's just based that they're difficult to work with, both NVIDIA and Nintendo. There's been lots of people saying that over the years, but it's nothing has been there's not some big expose on it or anything like that. But
it's weird. They're like friends with benefits.
Well. Yeah. So but then there's the case where they could just come out and say, we've got NVIDIA DLSS, because they're the only console to have it, right? Why wouldn't you say it?
I know. Why wouldn't you say it? Yeah, that's what, yeah, okay. So back to the rumor, increased battery capacity, increased processing power, shocker. AI capabilities, presumably NVIDIA's DLSS. I'm guessing we're going to get 3.5 on there at least by then. If it is going to release
3.7, it'll be whatever the latest version is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's DLSS 4 because by that time the next gen consoles will have been announced.
And
The next gen graphics cards. So
yeah,
the
the
50
next gen
series,
graphics cards that are definitely not coming out sometime early next year.
Yeah.
Again, not confirmed at all, but that's where all rumors are pointing to, just around CES time. I mean, so is the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. Like we have been talking about, it feels like ad nauseum for like early next year sometime. There's so much stuff coming out early next year. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Continuing on with this rumor, just to wrap up this show here. Taiwan Economic Daily News said that the Switch 2 is going to be $399 USD, which is $100 more than the original Nintendo Switch retail price of $299, and $50 more than the Nintendo Switch's OLED price of $349. That's about where I would put it, to be honest.
Yep.
I think that's a pretty damn good estimation. $399, that makes the PS5 Pro look crazy.
Well, I mean, but that's
It is a different market, and I do understand that. But in the world of, if you are a casual gamer, and
but then
you
like
are
the Xbox Series S will be cheaper. The Xbox Series S would be cheaper, or however much.
Yeah,
that
but how
is,
old is that?
And that's going to be way more powerful because it's a dedicated console.
Sure, but if you have a certain, like, say for Christmas, your parents are like, "What console do you want to buy?" And they don't have a lot of money, and they're like, okay, you've got a budget of like, you can get either one of these things. I think $400 is going to look really nice sitting next to a PS5 Pro. I do understand it's a completely different thing.
There's also a limit that Nintendo will go to, right? Because they're marketing these things as family-friendly consoles for kids, for people of all ages, right? But generally kids, right? The Switch is a massive success with children. So you can't have a $700 US Switch 2.
Yeah,
that's the most powerful handheld ever created, and Mario and Zelda look incredible because no parent's going to buy that for the kids, and the ones that do are just going to be spoiled brats.
Yeah, they don't deserve them anyway. Those little brats will get them.
Like kids with PS5 Pros, it's going to be like,
yeah,
like you should be slumming it like the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly. I want to get your thoughts on this point from the article. So according to the publication, the announcement for the Nintendo Switch 2 is expected before the end of the year in response to Sony's surprise, quote unquote, surprise announcement of the PS5 Pro. What do we think about this? I don't think there's much in that. I think, like we've talked about, it feels like ad nauseum as well, that Nintendo operates on its own, what feels like their own universal time. Like, they don't care when Sony releases their console. They're in a completely different market. They're in a completely different price bracket. They don't even have the same games. Like, you know what? They're a different animal entirely. So I don't think they are responding the rumor. This,
like, it's a response to the PS5 Pro announcement.
I don't think they're responding. I don't think they care.
No,
I don't think
There's a different thing. The PS5 Pro announcement was a clinical, technical presentation for enthusiasts only. You couldn't play that PS5 Pro video to somebody off the street and say, "Look at this. What do you think?" They'll be like, "What is this?" Okay, so I don't understand what's happening. But if you show them a like a presentation for like the Switch, where it's like, hey, they show you the handheld, they show you the games, they show you different, like you're playing at the beach, you're playing on a rooftop, however Nintendo sold it initially, and you'd be like, okay, I understand what that is. It's a completely different thing. And I don't think Nintendo announce it this year. Like, I never say never with them, but like, I don't think they do, because at this point, what benefit is it to them, really?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Now. We should just, before we wrap the show, it should be noted that the information within this story is clearly rumors. So this is not.
And also, what about the dual screen? What do you think about that?
Oh, so we didn't even talk about the dual screen.
Dude, that's a big thing, right? Like a DS. No.
You reckon?
No.
Why?
No
give
way.
give me a reason why. I had the
He-
DS.
Here's my 100% reason why. And this is based on looking at Nintendo's history. Okay, so the DS was an insanely popular handheld, right? Everybody had one. And the dual screen was used to great effect. A touch screen, another screen. Some games didn't require it. Some games just use it to display the map, etc., etc. Massive success. So then Nintendo released the Wii U console as the successor to the Wii. And they introduced a dual screen concept, which was like, hey, you can game on your TV, and then the controller with the screen on it can act as a second screen, just like the DS, where you gimmicky things like there's your map, touchscreen, etc., whatever the features were. And that console didn't do well. But then the other feature of that was that you could actually somebody could watch something else in their TV, and as long as you're in the same room, you can just game on your handheld. And so then they switch to the Nintendo Switch, which is essentially a single screen, but that sort of dual screen functionality. Because the Nintendo Switch is already a dual screen console. Either game on your TV or you game on the handheld. To add two screens to the actual handheld, what does that mean for the TV version? Like, it doesn't make sense. It makes it a 3-screen console, which is ridiculous.
Why?
If you know what I mean? And I just don't...
Well, you can't use 3 screens at once. You have to dock the console, so that means you'd have to close that flappy screen that goes down like that, presumably.
They hit gold with this idea of a console that is a gaming handheld that you can dock and pick up a Pro controller and have that traditional TV console experience with all the Nintendo games. So they consolidated their handheld and console division into one, essentially, with the Switch. So do they do a dual screen? It's so risky.
Imagine your Nintendo Switch, Costa, that you could plug into your TV.
What's that?
Imagine your Nintendo Switch that you could dock and plug into your TV.
Yeah.
Why is this a bad idea? I like it. The only thing that I'm concerned about is how chunky it is.
Having 2 screens on the handheld.
Yeah.
But you have to dock it to then go on your TV, right? So then you lose 2 screens when you dock it.
You lose the screen on the Nintendo Switch when you dock it. What's the difference?
Yeah, but then it's a like for like. How do you have 2 screens on your TV?
What? Why would you have 2 screens on your TV?
Because you got 2 screens in your handheld. So if you're playing in handheld mode with 2 screens like a DS that has functionality on one screen, then how does it work on your TV?
Well, you'd have to build the games around that. But when you do, when you unplug it, the functionality, like, let's not draw a guardrail between them working out, oh, we have an extra screen and our games aren't going to work. Obviously, you'd build your game around that. How do you think they build the Nintendo DS games?
And another part of the Switch 2 going more powerful is for them to actually get more third-party support, because now the Switch is so old that it's hard for developers to bring games.
It's a developer's
PlayStation and thingos. So the risk of making it a dual screen for the handheld and the extra cost for what benefit, I think, is a silly idea. I don't think it's
going to make it sell more consoles. I like it because 2 screens is dope, and I suppose I'm stuck in reminiscing about how cool the Nintendo DS was. I was just thinking Switch plus another screen. I wouldn't mind that, but then again, you're right. The Nintendo are trying to get more third parties over, and I can't imagine like it'd just be another thing that developers would need to develop their game for. It's not every game is going to work, and let's say I don't think Nintendo would let anyone cut corners and just make the other screen black. I think it would look pretty bad for their console if, Elder Scrolls 6 or whatever came over to the Nintendo Switch 2, and then instead of the other screen having just the map, it's just a black screen. Like, I think that's going to look rough. Yeah, look, if I was to predict something, I don't think this is real. I would like to see a prototype of one. I reckon that would be pretty cool. Like
if they toyed with the idea.
Yeah, I want to see what it looks like. And if I suppose like the image in the article right there is kind of interesting. Like if you had just the shell of the Nintendo Switch and you just slid the screen up instead of folding
Yeah, that's what I was
it.
about to say. There are PC gaming handhelds that have that slide. There was like the AONEO slide that Antec, I think, picked up for the US.
I'm always concerned about
at
dust.
Computex. It's just like they slide up the screen.
Yeah, I'm
But then
always
even that's
concerned
kinda
about
like,
grains of dust and dirt getting in the...
yeah,
I'm always, really concerned about that. I'm not that big on it. I prefer a fold.
like hinges. It also as well, like the perception is that it's more fragile if it's a slide screen, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally
And
right.
for kids as well, like carrying this around with the carry cases and them sliding the screen, like they're complicating something. Whereas this DS made sense. You flip it open, and it was a dedicated handheld that had games designed specifically for its low end hardware, gaming handheld hardware that could have a touch screen as well as the dual screen. So I don't know. Like, but then again, like if they do announce a dual screen Switch 2, I mean, I'll be interested to know how it all works, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen either. All right, well, that's about what we got for this week. Hopefully we are going to come back and have a bunch of cool stuff to talk about from that place that we're not allowed to talk about. We're going, which I think is really fun. Thank you very much for listening. If you have made it this far, please go check out the YouTube. For any throughout the podcast, we regularly throw up graphics for all of the stories that we've talked about. And if you head down to the description below, you'll find a link to a Google Docs link that contains all of the links to all of the stories that we talked about this week, plus more that we didn't get to. And do you have anything to sign this episode off with, my very good friend?
No, not really. But like, what happens if the Switch 2 gets formally announced while we're overseas?
Well, then we do an emergency podcast on our phones.
Exactly.
We will go live, Kosta. No, we'll work something out. You'll probably see the news. All right. Thank you very much, guys. We will catch you in the next one. Bye.